President Joe Biden has signed an executive order reversing the Trump-era ban on transgender service in the military. Eyewitness News reporter Holly Stoford tells us what this means to one transgender woman stationed at Fort Sam Houston.
It is my personal belief that every American citizen should take pride in the country and serve in some fashion for a couple of years.
Freyja Eccles is a sergeant first class in the Army. She's served for more than 2 decades.
Well, my couple of years turned into an entire career.
When former President Donald Trump first announced his transgender service ban in 2017,
I was scared, I was nervous.
Eccles was at the beginning of her transition.
So there was a lot of question on whether or not I would have to be quiet and continue serving in my gender assigned at birth.
Eccles chose to serve as her authentic self, a transgender woman. Today, President Joe Biden reversed Trump's controversial policy. His executive order immediately prohibits discharging qualified trans personnel, denying reenlistment or continuation of service based on gender identity.
All these service members that have been serving in silence now get to come forward.
An estimated 15,000 service members identify as transgender. Eccles says Biden's decision to embrace diversity gives people the freedom to be who they are.
President Biden talking about unity and bringing the country together again and having talks across the aisle, that just warms my heart.
Holly joins us live in studio. Holly, Eccles also helps victims of sexual assault.
Yeah, she serves as a brigade victim advocate on Fort Sam Houston. She says her command is accepting and supportive of its diversity. Eccles says they're constantly trying to be as inclusive as possible. And she says seeing her commander-in-chief pushing for the same thing makes her even more proud to serve.
Thank you, Holly.